All right, man. How are you?
I'm good now.
As always, thank you for spending your time. I know you're a pretty busy guy. I wanted to get to know you a little better and talk to you about kind of your life, your acting career, and what you're doing now in Columbus. You know, this upcoming year and beyond.
Okay.
Go ahead, introduce yourself to everybody. I already know you a little bit.
All right. Jon Osbeck. Been in Columbus almost all my life. Moved down here when I was like 4, and I've been here ever since then. I'm an actor. Started off as an actor, and that evolved into uh, writing, directing, producing, doing just about every kind of job that there is on a set. Yeah, and that's me.
Nice, man. Nice. Where'd you move from?
My family lived in. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and then I think at 9 months moved to Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
And then after being there for 6 months, moved to Cleveland, and then from like University Circle, part of Cleveland, down to Solon, and then my parents got divorced, and I moved down to Columbus with my. Or I didn't move down.
Right.
My mom moved my brother and I down to Columbus when I was just about 4. So, yeah. So that was it. It was like my dad had a bunch of different places where for his job. He was traveling for his job, and we were following him.
Right.
And then eventually came back up to Cleveland, which is actually where my mom's family is from. So, most of my family's here. Been in Ohio for a long,
Nice.
long time. Yeah.
I mean, well, you seem like a pretty grounded guy. So is family something that, you kind of base yourself in, center yourself around?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, when people say like, you're a grounded guy. I guess I don't think about it that much, but, no, I mean, family is huge. Family is really important to me. My wife, Jennifer, and my daughter, Ava, are, and then, my family beyond that. I mean, family is like what's most important
Right.
at the end of the day. So, I mean, all this other stuff is nice, but family definitely gives you a good perspective. I'm old too, Mark.
It's like, how do you find that balance between, being older and then also being a busy person? You know what I mean? Like putting on a movie, being an actor, that's not necessarily a cumbersome thing. You're always moving.
Well, I think my personality is I do feed off of that though. I have always been the kind of person that if I have only one thing to do, sometimes I will put that off until the very last minute. If I have like 8 things to do, I'm constantly trying to do all 8 things. And for whatever reason, my personality, I just feed off of that.
Right.
So I do I love the idea of spinning plates. Maybe that's why I love filmmaking. Because there are so many freaking plates that have to spin when you're doing something.
Legitimately.
I love being a part of it. I love being a plate that is spinning, but I also love kind of like making it all happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like organized chaos. That's kind of how
It's the best type of chaos because I put out like maybe one short film. It was like 16 minutes. But it was honestly the most fascinating thing ever. I kind of picture it as like creating a roller coaster ride. You know what I mean? And if people want to continue to ride that ride, then you got something good.
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it.
What would you say is like the driving force for you to be a filmmaker?
Hey, man, these are good questions.
No softballs around here.
No, it's good. The driving force for being a filmmaker. I feel. I feel like all my life I've always been very interested in the stories of other people. When I was a kid, and I might be driving, or my mom would be driving around, and I'd be in the back seat. I would look out. I remember this vividly. I would get really sad when I would see people just like sitting at a bus stop or walking down the street.
They could have just been being regular. They didn't have to be poor or homeless or
No,
anything.
no, like anybody. I would get so wrapped up into like, I wonder what their story is. I wonder what, I wonder what their life is like. I wonder, and I don't know what it was about me being a kid. I'm still, I go to a therapist regularly. I'm still trying to work through it. But there was something about that I think has always stuck with me, that I've always been fascinated that everybody has a story, and like anybody that you could pass on the street. I mean, they are the main character in their movie of life, and I'm just like an extra walking by their life.
Right.
Just like I'm the main character of my movie, you're the main character of your movie, and we, I didn't. I've now since thought about putting it in that kind of context in my brain, but I've just always been fascinated by story, and movies have also been the way that I, growing up, and with my parents getting divorced at a young age, movies were always, for me, that way of dealing with what I was going through as a kid. I remember vividly being so emotionally affected by E.T. when I saw it. So Stephen, I know.
Really? It's not like an emotional movie.
Well, I mean,
there's emotion, but like
when E.T. leaves at the end. But you're right for the most part. But what I saw was, and again, this is like unpacking it years and years later. What I saw in that movie was this family that had a mom, and he had his brother and sister, and it was just them.
Right.
There's this amazing scene at the dinner table that happens early in the movie before he discovers E.T. in the backyard in the shed. And it's this scene about them talking about this father who's never shown. It's not even a character in the movie other than the dialogue that they have. And I remember being at an early age, this is in the 70s, 80s, when I was growing up. Obviously, E.T. was in the early 80s.
Right.
But I remember thinking like, oh, somebody's like normalizing like being from a like divorced family, because it was something that I always felt was like a separator of things. And when I saw it on the screen, and then like his connection to E.T., I was just like overwhelmed with emotion. It just like struck me.
Yeah.
So I figured out in my own way at that time when I was a kid that movies help me figure out feelings. Like when you watch somebody, and I think this is something that everybody, I hope, relates to in a certain way. But I will also say for me, I'm much more emotional when I'm watching films or watching shows than I am in my own life and my day-to-day things. I just have a tendency to let my emotions out when I'm watching something emotional happen on screen. And I think that's kind of what I hope that's what the things that I've done in the past where I've been a part of have helped other people do. And that's what I always strive to do. So my drive to filmmaking, to make a long way around to answer your question, is I want to put stories out there that help people either experience emotions that they need to experience through the world of cinema, or to share experiences that people don't feel alone in the world. So that's how I'm able to verbalize it now.
Right.
I think I've always felt that way. I just didn't know maybe how to verbalize it so well. But that is, to connect and to share stories. And I think the more that we do that, I think the better off we're, on a much larger scale, like the better off we all are.
Yeah. Movies are like this window to the world that you want to be, or the world that you want to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? You were like, hey, I get to express myself more in these movies than I do in my regular life. I see myself doing that sometimes too. But it's more so due to, like you were saying, needing to get something out, or something is emotionally prodding at what I need to figure out in my own life. I think it's beautiful that way. That's one of the reasons I started filmmaking as well, just because it's nice to be able to put that pain into video form, or into acting, or into producing, into writing even. It's a beautiful process. And even if you don't feel those emotions anymore, if the stuff does get produced, at least you got them out on paper. You know what I mean? It's beautiful.
It can be cathartic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever whatever part of the process you want to look at. It all starts with writing. So being authentically connected to whatever it is that you're writing, whether it's pain, whether it's joy, whether it's sadness, whatever. Um, Getting to a place where you can be authentic in that connection to it, I think makes it. I think that's when you connect with others and people. You can't please everybody all the time, but I think that's when you'll find that you make connections with people through what you do.
I don't even think people get into filmmaking to people please. You know what I mean? Even though you want the masses to enjoy what you do,
Sure,
you want it to be like a double edged sword. What
I
you're
think
putting out.
you hit the nail on the head with you got something in you that you need to get out,
Right.
and it can be humor, it can be pathos, it can be whatever. It can be any of that.
I don't know. Let's go back a little bit further and kind of unravel how you started acting. Um,
I was gonna say, go back further. We went back to like
Bert?
where I was when I was born. I tell you about my mom and dad, but
Right.
they actually have a fascinating story. Anyway, yeah. Anyway,
You can touch on it whenever.
no. But okay,
When
all right.
when you're acting, like that's not necessarily. I mean, even you see it on Instagram, Twitter today. You know, you have what they call an Instagram comedian or somebody who just personally does skits, but they're getting a lot of traction and engagement from it. I wouldn't consider that acting. So, can you touch on a little bit what it was like for you coming up, what type of roles you went for, and what type of losses you experienced to get to where you are now? Because it's not the easiest thing to just put a camera in front of your face and start being a specified role. Like that's never easy.
I mean, like when I figure it out, I'll let you know. I'm probably far from figuring these things out, but at least my experience of it. So I started acting well, my mom would say I started acting at the dinner table. I would listen to comedy albums. Yes, Marq on vinyl when vinyl was the only
I
thing that
love
was
vinyl.
around,
Yeah,
right?
no, I love vinyl.
I mean, we're talking before cassettes. All right.
Okay, all right.
So, or at least before we could afford to have a cassette player. So I would listen to, man, I listened to. My brother's 4 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking you on a journey here, Mark.
No, you're good.
My brother's 4 years older than me, and he had all the good albums. So I would always listen to. He had all the great Beatles albums. He had, but also had great comedy albums. Cheech and Chong, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, all the National Lampoon albums, all their sketches that were on vinyl. And so I'd listen to these records, and then at dinner, I would do them again at the dinner table to try to make my mom laugh and make my brother laugh. And I would succeed. And I knew like when I was really successful at the dinner table, I would get sent to my room. Like, cause then it would involve me like doing pratfalls, like falling out of my chair and getting in a
physical.
So my mom says that's where my acting started. But then when I was, I did plays in middle school. And I was never much of an athlete. A little bit. I ran track. I wrestled.
I mean, you're in shape now. For at least from what I can tell.
Still working on it. But I discovered that, I loved the theater. And so when I did, I was Tony in West Side Story in the 8th grade. That was a pretty big hallmark.
Yeah.
And then I went to high school, and I was really fortunate to have an incredible theater teacher, and who was also the director of the plays. And that's when I really first started to experience what I think acting truly was for me, like what I would call like real acting,
right?
Serious acting. So, I did theater through high school, and then it's a long path to it. For a long time, I didn't do anything. So I came back to acting when I was in my late 20s, and I pursued other things, just a professional career. But there was always something that gnawed at me at the back of my head, like this thing that I loved doing. And I finally came back around to it when I was in my late 20s, and I was fortunate enough to get in with a friend of mine from high school, who I knew from high school, who wasn't even a really close friend, but he remembered me as this actor, and he was doing a short film. And he said, "Hey, I remember you from theater in high school. I'm doing a short film. I would love for you to come out and audition." And I did, and it was horrible. It was terrible. I had never auditioned for film before, so I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to like work with the reader. I didn't know where to look. I didn't know anything about it. And it was terrible. It was truly terrible. It's just one of those moments where, like, when you're in the room, you can feel it. You can just feel how like it's not going well.
Right.
And I have to say, I owe a lot to this person for doing this one thing. I went out to the parking lot. I was getting in my car, ready to go, and he came out and he's like, "I know you're better than that." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, dude." And he was like, "I know, it's okay." Then he walked me through it. And then he said, "Take however much time you need, and then come back in the room and do it again." And I got a part in that little film, and that started like getting an agent locally, and then started doing other work with this group of like kind of indie rogue filmmakers that were in Columbus at that time. Then we all started working on each other's short films, and then we all tried to break into doing features and of our own that we were writing and producing ourselves and doing all of that. So that was like the start of it. I feel like I've gone away from your question though, Mark.
No, that's cool. It's a lot, and shout out to your friend, who kind of gave you that second chance. It's pretty easy if you're either running the camera in front of the camera. It's super easy to just not get a call back.
Right.
Literally, just to be able to go in and execute well is hard enough. But now you got to focus on, hey, do they actually like you?
Yeah.
So the fact that he gave you that, kind of kept that confidence building in you, that's amazing.
Incredibly lucky. I was very fortunate in that specific one, because I could easily see. I mean, it could have gone one way or the other. Right. After that experience, if he had not come out and said something, I probably would have been like, "Yep, right. I didn't do it. There's a reason why I did not do this for like 10 years, and there was a reason why." But when he came out and did that, it was like the start of then. Yeah, and then you learn that journey, and then I started to. I was with an agent when I was a freshman in high school.
Right.
So I had a local commercial agent. I booked one job, and it was for voiceover.
You're probably
it was like a group of kids that were doing a voiceover for this whatever the business was. But I did start taking acting classes through this agency way back. The agency's not even around anymore. And I got a taste of like a little bit of Stanislavski method and so I got a little taste of it. But then it wasn't until much later when after I started in that short film that my friend did that I started to really say, okay, I love this. I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to find out who's teaching class around. So then I started taking acting classes wherever I could and started doing everything that I possibly could. And then I got an agent, commercial agent, and started having those experiences like you're talking about of, going into a room. And I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is too, like there's a wonderful part about it. And there's the horrible part of it as well for an actor, which is like the majority of your acting careers, people telling you that you're not it.
Oof.
Right? Is it
building that thick skin? It
is, but I think, and it takes some people longer to get there and some people shorter, but you get to a place where you start to understand that if you go in, and I think a lot of it comes back to being authentic, like I said before. If you go in and you're authentic and you've done all of your work to get into that room, to be in front of that camera and be in that situation, and you're going to give an authentic read, you're going to do what you are going to do in that scene, it's either going to line up with what that casting director or that producer or that director wants or not. Right. And sometimes you can't, there's just no way to get around what somebody else has in their mind for a role when they write something or when they're making it. There's just no way to get around that. But at some point, those things are going to line up. And you being authentic is going to resonate with whoever's making that decision in that room. And the surest way to not have that happen is to stop auditioning and stop working for it.
Right.
Like that's the easiest way for you to not make it. that's the surest way for you to not make it. So I've always felt like, well, like there's no choice but other than to continue to do it.
Yeah. Even in the stuff that I've seen you do, mind you, you're no like small actor compared to people who don't act in the big leagues. You know what I mean? You're still up there. You've been in a Tom Hanks movie. I worked with Alec Baldwin as well. Um, it's it's a lot easier for people to kind of start nowadays, but building that craft is something that I feel like that you've perfected over time. Because even seeing you on film, like you captivate like a pulse a lot of people do not and cannot do nowadays.
Wow.
So that's more of a testimony to your authenticity than anything, no?
Thank you. I I hope so. I think that's now become the goal. I don't think it's always been that way. I think when you start out, and I don't think there's anything terribly wrong with starting out. You emulate actors, right? That you admire, and I think some of that just kind of builds what your on-camera personality is, right? Either movies that you've grown up with and the heroes on screen or heroines on screen, whoever they are. I think that shapes you in a way, but yeah, now I do try to just strive for being authentic and and being okay with, like, I know it's not always going to line up, but I feel worse now if I go into an audition, or if I go into an audition like so much is self-tape now, right?
Right.
Like I'll also say my other secret weapon, but but if I do a self-tape, or if I submit to an audition now, I feel worse if I don't do something that is authentic to me.
Like picking the role?
No, not even. Well, I don't get to pick roles.
Okay, gotcha.
I get to choose whether or not I'm going to audition for the roles that are sent to me right now. I mean, someday it'd be nice to like pick a role, but I mean, but that's why we create too, because we want to create the roles that we want to do.
You want to play,
right?
Exactly.
That's why we do this other stuff. But no, my other secret weapon in an audition is, and I'm super fortunate, is my wife. Jennifer, she's an actress. We actually met when I was doing my first feature, and she's an incredible actress, and she also has just a great gift of being able to, well, in several ways, call off. Wait, am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah.
Are you sure? I don't mind.
You're good.
She calls out my bullshit, whether it's in an audition or whether it's in real life.
Right.
But it's really helpful in an audition when she's like, I don't know, maybe you should do it again. So I'm very fortunate that way. But I would also say to any actors, like, man, if you're doing any especially in this age of like self-tapes now, like if you're doing anything, like get somebody in that room with you who you trust.
You kind of almost have to.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard. Even back in the days of like taping at agents' offices, I would ask my friends who were actors who I respected and trusted. We had like this little group of three of us, and we would be like, are you going in for this audition? You going in for this audition? Let's go. I'll go in at the same time, and we'll all read for each other. Right. Because agents are great, but no matter what an agent is, most of the time they're not an actor.
Right.
And so, you know, I mean, you know how it is. It's like they're reading off of you like monotone and just, which is, I get it. And sometimes that's the way it is in a room, but like anything that you can do to put things in your favor. And that's one of the things. So, but yeah.
A lot of filmmaking in general, I've come to notice, is like tipping the scale to your favor. Just like you said, making sure that all the pieces are in place, or all the balls are in your court, or just enough of them are in your court to be able to make something successful. No?
Yeah. Yeah. When you figure it out, let me know too. Cause
I will, trust me. This stuff is hard.
No, but you're right, man. You're right. And there's nothing at all wrong with doing that. And, you know, yeah, putting everything in your favor that you possibly can. And whether that's if you know somebody, or if you're trying, you know, in any kind of way, developing a relationship. And I think people talk about film and acting and movie making as being so full of nepotism, and it's like who you know. And
right.
That's just life to a certain extent.
I support nepotism.
Right? I mean, it's also like when you get a core group of people, and I'm sure you felt this way when you were making your short, like you had probably some people in that group where you're like, I would go back to war in film trenches with these people anytime.
Yeah, heartbeat.
And those are the people that I want to have around me. And like, that's just what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's beautiful, man.
It's a great thing.
Because that's why you see a bunch of, director-actor duos or even actor-actor duos or even posse cuts. Adam Sandler, he's been becoming a big inspiration of mine, but just how he's able to cultivate every movie and make it family-friendly and good, and the same actors and comedians come in and want to support his work.
I love it. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Like, do I love all the movies? No, dude. I love what he's creating, though. I do. And it's the same. I have the same feeling about M. Night Shyamalan. And some people love his work. Some people don't. Right?
It's just there.
But what I love that he did with his filmmaking is that he planted a flag in Philadelphia, and he was like, no, I'm going to make movies in Philadelphia. I'm going to use the crew I'm going to use. And you do also see like this kind of group of actors that come back and do his movies. I like that. But it is kind of a natural thing too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you have a working relationship with somebody that's good, you keep on doing that.
Yeah, you milk it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and you just want to keep on doing it,
right?
Because the work is great. You love working with these people, and you want to keep on doing that. That's what I mean. That's kind of like what. I mean, that's what the ultimate goal is in life, is like to be loving the thing that we're doing and doing the thing that we love.
Right. With the people we love, or at least like.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So anytime that I am able to get involved in somebody else's passion project, and I would say that every project is a passion project for someone. Like, I love being brought into that, and I fully come in, and I try to fully come in with the respect of like, I am being brought into this new group of people, this new family or whatever, whether it's I don't know, whether it's a commercial or a short film or a Tom Hanks film. Like, you feel really honored to be a part of it, and that somebody has brought you into that environment because you know how sacred that like can be.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, even making some of your own films, under Big Deal Pictures, that has to be your passion. Putting those movies under your entity and making them as good as possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, acting will always be my first like love in this business.
Yeah.
But that is now my full on goal. And it's not just for doing things under Big Deal Pictures, but it's, I mean, in a way, it's funny because just talking about M. Night, I feel that this city needs to have a flag planted to say like, all right, let's start upping the level of, and people, like, there's amazing things happening in Columbus. I do not for 1 second claim to be the person who's like, or this group of people that's coming in to say, we're going to change the face of everything. Like, I just want to highlight and like bring all of it to light to help do that in some kind of way. And I think with what we're aiming to do, that we're going to be able to do that to help all the people who are in Columbus doing independent film. I think we can have an amazing identity for this city to be like a hub of independent film, not only in the Midwest, but even further. I mean, some of the, yeah. But yes, bringing these stories to life through the production company now is, that's like the big dream, and to keep on doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're like in part 2 now. Like this is a 2-parter.
It's always the worst, especially when you're building stuff, man, just having to like makeshift everything. I can't wait for a continuous recording so you can just have a free-flowing conversation. But we were talking about Big Deal Pictures, and I wanted to stem that into talking about Down to the Felt. We're not gonna, have this conversation without talking about that. And you were touching on making films in Columbus and bringing up independent filmmakers in Columbus. Was that the inspiration for Down to the Felt, or were you just like, I need to make this movie in Columbus, Ohio?
Wow. Okay. There's a lot. Okay. We're going to unpack. So, no, it's good. It's good. It was not the original. Well, I mean, it kind of was. So I went back to school when I was in my late 40s. mid to late 40s, and to finish my degree because I never finished my bachelor's, and that was something that always gnawed at me. When I finished that, it was during the I actually graduated at the beginning end of the pandemic. And I spent about a week after graduating. I spent a week doing kind of nothing. But like I said, my personality is I always want to have something.
Right.
And after about a week, I went. I remember my wife was sitting at her desk in her little office area, and I was like, "Hey," she's like, "What?" I was like, "Okay, I know what I'm going to do." She's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, I know that like I want to make movies. Like that's it. That's what I want to do." And it was after that Down to the Felt came around. I knew it was something that I was going to focus. Like I thought about it, like if I spent I spent 4-ish years finishing my degree.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if I put all that time and effort in doing that thing, I can take all of my time and effort that I have available outside of my day job and focus that on building something where I can, where I and the people that I want to be around and that I've worked with before, and the people that I continued to start meeting along this journey, all these filmmakers, like that's what I want to do.
Right.
So that was where that like genesis started. And then it was shortly after that one of the co-writers of Down to the Felt, Ralph Scott, came to me with a 1-page treatment. And it was during the pandemic, and the pandemic is really the thing that sparked the film Down to the Felt, which was this lack of having a creative outlet.
Right.
Remember that time when none of us could really do anything, right? I mean, there was no theater, there was no film, there's nothing's happening, nothing. And I just felt like I was in this creative void, just like everybody felt. And the one thing I figured out that maybe you could do is like write. We could come up with stories. We could do that. And so Ralph came to me with that 1-page treatment of an idea. And I said, oh man, I bet this is something that you, me, and Dino Tripodis, the other writer, could work on. And so we spent a year and a half working on the script, and did nothing but write. Whenever we could, we wrote separately. We would get together and we would safely distance ourselves outside until it got too cold. And then, and so, yeah, we just focused on that, focused on the writing. And
so usually it's a little more than like 1 page, right? Like you can't really build anything off of a page, especially when you're somewhere like Columbus, Ohio. So what really caught your eye about Down to the Felt?
And it wasn't even Down to the Felt then. It was just, no, it was, well, I think the 1-page thing absolutely is what sparked it. Because it was the story about a guy who's a gambler, and he wanted to like make his life feel like it was the last 2 minutes of a game.
Right.
But originally it was like over the course of, I think it was like maybe a year. Like he gave himself a year, and then he was going to like have somebody kill him at the end of the year or something like that. It was, Dino actually has the 1-page treatment like framed on his wall. I should go back and read it. Because I've been living with what the story has become now.
Right.
It hugely evolved, right? So it did evolve a lot from that. So, but that was absolutely the spark in it. And what I saw in it was like, oh, this is something that we could do that hits all of our strengths with Dino's dialogue and the story structure that I love to do, and the kind of the vision that I had in my head of it, and Ralph with his incredible background in improvisation. He comes out of Second City, Chicago. I mean, his instructors were Stephen Colbert at that time. Like, so he is and he's an incredible actor, and that just helped us facilitate the writing process even more, because we would sometimes act out scenes where we were trying to figure out, okay, where is this going to go? And we just like, man, Ralph's just so brilliant at doing that. But we treated it like a writer's room, more like a series or like an episodic. Because I have a lot of people ask me, like, 3 people wrote a screenplay. How does that work? I'm like, well, how does it work when people have a writer's room on an episodic?
You're just bouncing those ideas,
right? Like, you work as a team to write. It's no different. And so that's how we approached it. I mean, that's where it started from. And now it's become this thing where we really see it possibly being something to help bring attention to Columbus. It was not always set in Columbus, but we were always going to film it in Columbus once we made the decision to do that, which wasn't always the case. We thought we were going to sell the script.
I mean, it's written like you guys were thinking that at first, but I love the turn of writing it and producing it in Columbus. There's just so many rich ways to tell a story here.
I absolutely agree.
Like, so many, too many to count. Diverse amount of people. A lot of people want to act. A lot of people are good at what they do, but just don't know that all you got to do is put a camera in front of it to be considered what an actor and actress would be, or a producer or anything. So
that's one of the things that excites me incredibly about this project is that and I see it happening already, and how it's starting to come together is that it's this beautiful blend of that and having people who are so freaking incredibly talented that go sadly unnoticed in the larger markets because of where we are and just the sheer number of projects that don't get made here in this area. And excuse me, not only like actors, but, and you know this, like when I say talent, I mean from all sides of the camera. There's so many amazingly talented people in this town. And the wonderful things about the resources and the diversity of it. Yeah. And we get all seasons and locations and everything else like that. And the infrastructure that's here too. I mean, everything is just sitting here waiting to go.
It's like people don't understand like how much of a film career can be started behind the camera just as much as it is in front of the camera.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like there's Ohio Media School, but they're the only ones really running ads here. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and it's not, it's not that it's going to be a film that's happening every single, 4 weeks or 3 weeks or 5 weeks or however long the shoot is. But like, you're so absolutely correct about that, Mark, which is there are wonderful opportunities where, and it's like this in every market, where people are making their living by doing commercial work in between the films that come in or the films that get produced. But learning those crafts of being a gaffer, a grip, whatever it is, hair, makeup, wardrobe, production design, right? Like those are
an avenue.
So many, there's so many departments in, I'll say film, but also that have to be done in every other kind of commercial world, work that there is. I'm excited about seeing like more and more people, like seeing Columbus specifically get a deeper and deeper roster of crew that is talented. They're out there. Mm-hmm. They're here. They're not out there. They're here. They're here in Columbus. So many of them, and so many more. That there's room for that to happen.
It's ridiculous. Can you speak to what film funding is like for somebody in Columbus? Because I know I've been trying to look for resources and I found resources, but there's kind of like levels to it. You know what I mean? For those who don't know, we did meet at Pitch C-Bus 23. I feel like you should have won that one. I understand a lot of the reason why you didn't get picked. Based on even the concept reel that you showed, it just looked like you guys were able to do it without that extra money. But how does one get film funding? How do people find you here? How do people believe in your project? Like, how does that get started?
It gets started, I guess, by trying to be a really loud voice.
Really?
I mean,
so not the product.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if I know the answer to that, Mark. I mean, we're deep into fundraising right now still. So again, I think it comes back to a little bit of what we were talking about before, which is you have to explore every possible avenue that you have access to. Um, I, I guess I'll also say I think a lot of it is also about commitment. Um,
It's a good one. Yeah, touch on that.
like I, I just I think that well, I know for me personally, I'm absolutely 100% committed to making this movie happen. And there's a lot of reasons underneath that. I mean, one, there's nothing like set life, but also for the reasons that we've talked about before about like this being something that can be an impetus for more and more things to happen. I really my goal is not just to make this movie. I want to make this movie, but
Right.
that's not my only goal. My goal is to make movies and to also ultimately have a sustainable, profitable, independent film industry develop in Columbus. And
Right.
whatever I can do as part of that, and I think that this film is something that's going to be part of that. Whatever I can do to be help that happen, that's what I'm committed to. So um, I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of showing how committed you are to the thing that you're doing, the level of professionalism that you have, which continually grows as as you continue to do things. But also, I think I think we're also fortunate that there have been people who have stepped out and done amazing films from Columbus, like Loose Films. Those
Yeah.
guys at Loose Films are so freaking talented.
Yeah.
And the success that they've had with Poser, going to Tribeca Film Festival and then getting distributed, um, and with what they're going to go on to do next, like I can't wait to see what they're going to do next. And they have a love for this city. And I've known these guys since they were film students, most of them since they were film students at Denison. So we're really fortunate to have them have had that success because and the more that happens for different productions
Yeah.
and different people around this city, the more we're going to be able to have not only film production be born from Columbus, but then I think we'll get to a place where we'll be able to have productions in the indie world be able to say like, oh, Columbus is like the place to go to like film.
Right. If you want to
You know?
get a niche film done, come here.
Yeah. If it's within a certain budget and hopefully the tax incentive from the state of Ohio continues to evolve, which it's starting to, but I think it still has a ways to go. I mean, I think that would be helpful too. So, man, did I answer your question?
Definitely. When you say tax incentive, so film companies get incentivized to make stuff here because they'll get breaks for it.
Yeah. So,
Right.
I mean, and okay, so we're still, yeah. I mean, talking about financing. By the way, like to answer your question, I don't know the answer.
You're good, man.
Like, I will just come back and say that again about financing. It is like it is the elusive thing to figure out, and I mean, there are definitely places and organizations within Central Ohio to go to, like Greater Columbus Arts Council. I mean, for sure to engage with the Film Commission in Columbus, right?
Right.
To try to find those opportunities. There's a lot of grants that are out there, and that's what we're also in the process of still doing, not just in Ohio, but there's a lot of national grants to apply for.
Right.
And just like a quick Google search of like film grants that are available, like blows your mind. There's so many to do. Now, grant writing to get like $5,000 or $10,000 when you have a budget that's like, I don't know, like $3 million it's not nothing, but you've also got to like decide, okay, writing a grant for this and taking all that time to do that, is it worth that?
Right.
And so we've been really fortunate as well to establish a relationship with a nonprofit here in town, Wild Goose Creative.
Mm-hmm.
They're an amazing organization. Their whole goal is to make art accessible for all people in Columbus, and they do that through the location that they have in Franklinton. They have, it's a place where art galleries can happen, open mics, bands can play there. Everything that they do to enrich the artist community, not just in film, but in every kind of medium. I've always loved what they've been about.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited when we got to start a conversation with them, and they agreed to be what's called our fiscal sponsor. And that means that people can make tax deductible donations that go towards our film, but a percentage of that goes to Wild Goose Creative.
Right.
So they extend their nonprofit to us.
Right. So they can keep working.
Exactly. And it's just such a beautiful relationship to have. And since we had a fundraiser, I mean, that's the other thing that we did. We had a fundraising event to not only bring awareness, but also to bring some people in to show on a larger scale what we're trying to do. Well, I should say what we're going to do. And out of that, we've already had donations starting to come in. And now on our website, we have a donate now. I guess I should at some point maybe figure out I should be plugging that. But people can start doing that now, and they can do it in any amount. And we've had a range of amounts already come in through that great relationship that we have with them now. So that's another way. And then, of course, there's private equity investment. I think that really comes down to starting out who do you know, and then who do they know, and then who do they know? Right. So it's just you have to keep on going down that rabbit hole of but I think it all begins with commitment, and that's stepping out and saying, I'm a filmmaker, I'm going to make this film. And then kind of anywhere you go, when somebody says, oh, well, what do you do? And I say,
I make movies.
I'm a filmmaker.
Which is the coolest tagline ever.
Right.
You meet somebody who makes films ooh, okay, I want to learn more.
And I think you never know who you're going to run into someplace. Right. And I mean, if that's really what you are, then say it. Be proud of it. Say it. I mean, I can also say there was a period of time where it's no, I don't know if I'm really a filmmaker. I don't know if I'm a director, but that's what I am. And so when people ask me, I say I'm a director, writer, director.
Yeah.
And that sometimes sparks a conversation, but it's following that rabbit hole. You can't go anywhere. But exactly. There's a combination of things that I think, and also through the tax incentive through Ohio. But the tax incentive is interesting because it's actually a tax credit that you get back after you've completed the film, and you have to apply for it, right? So, which we're in the middle of that process right now. I think that in the next 2 or 3 days, the window closes for the application. So I'm after this, I'm going back and finishing the paperwork for that. So, but it can be up to 30% of all the expenses that are in Ohio. You could get back as a tax credit afterwards. So it's a wonderful thing that they have, and I just hope it continues to get better in how it's executed. So.
All right, going back to building a sustainable business model.
Yeah.
What percentage of just filmmaking in general has been network for you?
Of my personal filmmaking,
it's pretty difficult to, well, at least for me, somebody who wants to go kind of the independent route, also not see and kind of have some resentment towards playing the game, kind of massaging relationships. You have to do that to a certain degree, but you also want to make your film and your thing, and having too many hands in the pot. Private equity shareholders, they can start pushing the film towards a direction it wasn't supposed to go originally because they have their hand in it. So how do you balance and kind of tiptoe around keeping the movie as is, but also getting that funding? I'd straight up tell them, hey, the movie's going to get made as you like it, but under the guise of what's going to happen here. You can't tell me to change something if you're going to give me the money. So
it's tough. I think I've been fortunate that I have not run into a situation where, and I think a lot of it comes with what you just said, being upfront with people and being very clear about what someone's involvement is,
right, when
it comes to an equity investor. So what I've always led with, and most of the time it's been through networking and things like that. But what I've led with when it's been that situation is, and what I think in my head and try to just continue to act with, is that people are going to be a part of this project because they want to be a part of the project. Mm-hmm. And they want to be a part of that story. I mean, I can see how it's really hard to turn down money when somebody says, "Oh yeah, but if you just, what have you thought about changing this or changing this?"
Tweak
And
this
so
here.
like, um, it's really hard to like walk away from an investor, and so I think it's a constant like struggle. Like, I think a perfect example might also be like we're looking at doing some product placements as raising part of the budget for this film, and with a product placement, it's like, oh, okay, well, a product placement that's going to be on the, like, if we're shooting a bar scene and the back wall of the liquor in the bar, if we're going to make it all one kind of brand, that doesn't change my story at all, yeah. Right? So you've got to figure out like where can you give, and where do you not want to give up of what your story is. But I think for me, I've always just led with that idea of saying, you're bringing the funds to make this happen. We're telling the story. If you believe in the story as it is, as it's done, then we should work together.
Right.
I'd love to have you be a part of this. And if not, then maybe it's not right. And that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. Especially when thousands of dollars are on the line.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it comes back to like your commitment, your professionalism, the reasons why you're wanting to do something. And I think you'll find that group of people who believe in the same things as you.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Good man. I love that answer. So it's Ralph, and then who's the third? Is it the taller gentleman? Or is
Ralph's the tall guy?
Okay, got you.
And then there's Dino Tripodis. So it's Ralph Scott, Dino Tripodis, and myself. The three of us wrote it.
Yeah, I saw you guys on NBC4.
Oh yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, no, that was wait, I think it was on 10.
Yeah,
it was on 10.
Sorry about that.
I have to say that also because they have. This is another wonderful thing that's happened is they have committed to being our media partner.
Oh man!
So they're going to follow. This is the other cool thing that's happening. Yeah. They're going to follow our story and the film all the way through production, all the way up to the local premiere.
Wow!
So they're going to have pieces, and we're going to have Bram Folk, who's the gentleman who's the producer of the segments. He's can't thank him enough for championing our story to WBNS 10 TV. But it's going to be really cool because this city is going to be able to follow the production and the creation of this movie as we shoot on the streets here and as we shoot in locations. And
I don't think I've ever seen that done before in Columbus. So
yeah, so it's pretty exciting to think about. We're really thankful for that relationship with them, and that piece was the first one to start the whole thing rolling. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
and you guys are set to shoot spring.
We are set to shoot in the spring
nice.
Of 2024. Yeah, I was just going through my schedule the other day. So
is this surreal?
It is in a way. Yeah, it is in a way. It is. But there's so much that goes into it. It's like you kind of get lost in it. But yeah. But in a way, it's just like I believe and I know that what we're doing is going to be not only a good thing for the film that we're doing, but for the city and for the people, for my fellow filmmakers and film artists who are in the city too. So that's what I love.
Can't wait for it, man. I've also kind of fallen in love with the good documentation of certain things. Like I don't think that there should be a documentary for everything, but something like this, second to none, should be recorded. Good job, man.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. And the one other wonderful thing is like this relationship, like not having ever like
I just press record.
No. I mean, like the fact that you and I are sitting here talking and that we were both, I just happened to be the one pitching at the contest. You very well will be pitching at the next one for whatever maybe you're going to be doing, and I'll be in the audience. But I love the. I mean, it's the attitude that you had coming into that, and I'm so thankful you came up and said something to me, and
it was the best produced piece of like video I saw in there. I'm like, who is this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I gotta know. We gotta name names here. So that was all thanks to you.
Well, and I will say thank you. There was a whole slew of people behind.
Right.
Like we worked hard on that production piece and on the concept reel that we had and everything else. But yeah, I love it because it leads to things like I never would have known about you before doing that. So just be open to like the experiences that the journey will take you on and the people that you're going to run into.
Yeah.
So.
And whatever you guys need, man. Literally, if you need me to bring some donuts on shooting day, said life is incredible. I'll easily take PTO off. Don't worry. Don't worry. I wanted to keep picking your.
I'm gonna take you up on that, by the way. So,
okay, cool.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Not just on the donuts part. I mean, we all love donuts, but
Krispy Kreme or Dunkin', if you had to choose.
I gotta. Okay. I'm gonna say neither.
Right.
I know you're gonna hate this because the other part of it is Honey Dip Donuts on Kenny Road is by far my favorite donut shop.
It's probably the best plug you did all day,
dude. It is. Yeah. It is the best.
Honey Dip
Donuts on Kenny Road.
Okay.
Yeah, right close to Henderson and Kenny.
Got you.
I would turn. Yeah.
Okay. No, say less.
That's it.
Let's kind of shift gears here. Kind of think a little futuristically. Put your tinfoil cap on.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
Let's talk about AI. Let's talk about SAG-AFTRA. Let's talk about the strike.
Okay.
Talk about all the ramifications of the newer technologies we see, how that comes into filmmaking and acting today. I don't know how up to speed you are on like what they can do with deep fakes and all of this good nature stuff, but pretty much what they can do is encode your face, encode your voice, put it onto a screen in perpetuity forever. That's through programming, technology, and everything like that. I was wondering if that affected you at all. I know that there was a complete strike.
Yes. So the strike deeply affected us. Those specific issues that SAG went on strike about did not directly affect me, but I am a SAG actor, and our film is a SAG film that we're doing. Okay. So kind of the effect that had on us was it shut down basically. We originally were we were aiming to film in fall of this year.
Right.
And then the strike happened and we could not any longer negotiate with any actors and everything was just on a hold. So the fact that the strike happened delayed us. We kind of saw it as a blessing in disguise, or chose to look at it that way.
Right.
Take that opportunity. As you know, the more pre-production time that you have, the better. And we had no choice, right? So great. So that's how we looked at it. But from an actor and then from an acting side, as a SAG actor, I was just there's no shot at doing any motion picture or television work.
Right. Now
the other contracts are still okay to do. So like commercial acting, industrials, voiceovers, things like that. But it's crazy what they can do, and those protections absolutely need to be in place. And the more actors that just say like, all right, I'm just going to take a paycheck and you can use my image or likeness for whatever, it sets a precedent for production companies or for producers to say like, okay, yeah, most people will just settle for having like a one-time paycheck. And I think it does a disservice in the long run to settle for that. Although I get it too, like people got to work. It's like a tough balance between those two things. Like, especially in a market like this, we're not LA, we're not New York, we're not Chicago. So when the work comes, like whatever work comes, you kind of got to jump at it, right?
Yeah, especially if you're considering, like you said, standing on, hey, I'm a filmmaker.
Right.
Like, okay, let's get this done then if you're a filmmaker.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to bring it up though, because a lot of it I've seen it work not only for me but for tons of people on the internet, right? Which is the gauge that we all go by. But they're using a lot of AI generated imagery, acting, even voiceovers to get a lot of the smaller work done. Um, Essentially, like taking people away from their work and their jobs.
Yeah.
Which I'm on the fence about because I agree with doing if you don't have the resources, but also am a fan of employing people. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that? There's got to be a way you're listening and like got your ear to the ground about what may be happening.
I well, okay. So the two-parter of that, like my personal opinion is that it it has to be the artist that's rewarded for the work, and I think just I mean a little bit of a side to that is that I think there's a huge divide between uh, the compensation that the AMPTP and the organizations like the Screen Actors Guild for the actors that are in it are being for what they're being paid. It's interesting because I always like I'm gonna go back in time now. Remember a thing called Napster?
Yes.
Yeah. When Napster came out, it was like at first I thought it was the best thing ever. I get in whatever music I want. I could get everything was right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at the time I had a friend who was a SAG actor, and he's like, "Well, what if that was your music?" And now all your residuals are just gone because somebody just put your stuff out there and everybody's getting it for free. Don't you think you should be compensated for it? I was like, well, yeah, I guess, and so I think we got to find that balance of like, okay, how can we make that kind of technology work in what kind of way that is fair and equitable to all parties involved? And I think there's a way to do it. But I think the people who are in charge of it obviously want to do it for as little money as they have to.
Yeah.
But so now there's a new contract from SAG that has yet to be ratified by the SAG members. Voting is open right now. But they did come to an agreement. So, I just think it comes down to the issue of fair and equitable pay for work done. And I believe in that. So I don't know if I have my ear to the ground on anything else that's really happening with it.
Yeah.
But, I guess it's kind of like treat the people the way that you would want to be treated.
Golden rule.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't want your image and likeness to be used without you getting compensated, like maybe you should think about that when you're making that decision. I can't tell you what to do, but that's what I would do.
Yeah.
So
the beauty is, it's a lot faster and more efficient for a production company like a Big Deal Pictures. If you wanted to get something done grassroots, you can now. But is that the most feasible thing? Are you going to get the most person ROI versus just, hey, let's put this good looking, cool looking film out? It's pretty nuanced, man. It's pretty nuanced.
It is, and everything is. I feel
Not
like
to get all heebie-jeebie.
I think
blue in the daytime on me.
No, man. Everything is nuanced, but also in a way that you made me think about. Like life is full of a bunch of gray.
Yeah.
And I think when we're younger, and I mean younger in any kind of path, whether it's younger in a professional path or younger in life, usually too, like we tend to think in blacks and whites, like stark contrasts, right? And I just personally feel like my view is that as I get on in life and experiences, like life is in the gray area. It's not just all one way or the other. Life is kind of in the middle. As a matter of fact, Dino, one of the writers, had a great saying, and he's like, we were talking about somebody who was giving one side of a story, and he hadn't talked to the other person on the other side of the story yet, and we were talking about it, and he said, I don't know, Johnny, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I was like, ooh, I like that. Like, because he hadn't heard the other side of it. He's like, I mean, I believe this person, but I haven't heard the other side of it. So like life is kind of in the gray. Like you got to figure out how to make all those things work.
I feel like that's how you make a good movie too. You know, you can't just be like you go too political, going too black or too white. But that gray area is how you get those classic movies, the cult classics, and the movies that even if you hate, you're like, okay, I see why this came out.
Right? Those sharp ends of the spectrum will have their little followings, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you can make something that's accessible in a way that makes everybody experience universal feelings. It can be done in a horror movie, it can be done in a comedy, it can be done in a drama or an action, but if you focus in on like the shared experiences of life and the shared feelings of life, yeah.
Good.
I certainly hope so, Marq.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
Right. Try.
That's what we're trying to do.
Do you have any advice for any up and coming filmmakers, actors, producers, people who just like touching a camera and storytelling? You know, any advice, any encouragement, any discouragement?
No discouragement. No discouragement.
Make your movie.
Yes. Just be around it as much as you possibly can. Molly Kruzman, who we're also really fortunate to have as part of our production team.
Yeah.
But Molly Kruzman, a while ago, set up this filmmaker gathering that happens once a month. And it just comes back to this idea of networking. I would say my biggest advice would be to continue to network, but also be real with yourself about what you want to do with this thing that you love. And when I say that, I mean, like, for me, it was, so when I made that decision that I was like, okay, I want to start taking acting seriously. So I took classes. I found out whatever available resource there was. And then I started asking people just to be a part of like films, even if I wasn't acting on it, just so I could see and be a part of it. Like,
right.
I think, so maybe the second part of that is, if you want to be involved in some kind of, in any aspect of this thing we call filmmaking or making movies, I think it's also really important to have a good respect for all the different parts of it.
Right. That's huge.
But I would try to do any kind of work on any kind of film that's happening, whether it's, you know, being a PA or anything. You know, if you can afford to do it, be an intern on something. I don't know. I knew that once I made that decision, I had to be around film as much as I possibly can, and I was willing to do whatever I could that didn't jeopardize like my family or my job, right? But to be a part of it, like just to get to be involved in it. So, yeah, I guess that would be my advice, and also if it's, and here's my big piece of advice. If this thing that you're doing, writing, directing, acting, producing, whatever it is, gaffing, gripping, whatever, camera department, if that's the thing that you love, that you are passionate about, then if that's the thing that you are passionate about, then don't stop doing it. I said it before, the surest way to not make it is if you stop doing it. And I really believe that ultimately you will be successful if you just continue to do that thing that you are passionate about, because there's nothing that replaces passion. There's nothing. And all the things that you need to learn can come along with it. But if you don't have a passion, if you don't have that desire in you, if you don't follow that, then it doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter how much you learn. It doesn't matter what kind of people are around. Follow that passion. And I believe, and I want to believe, that if you do that, then the work will be there eventually, but the work will be there.
Good, man. Good. Where can the people find you? Where can the people find the movie? How do we get to you?
easy one to start off with. The movie, our handle is Down to the Felt Movie. So that is our website. That is our social medias. And I guess I should also definitely say that if anybody is feeling that giving spirit of donating, the generosity, right? That's a beautiful. It really is a beautiful thing because people can now make, if they go to our website, which is downtothefeltmovie.com, there's a donate now button, and again, those donations are tax deductible, and they're not only going to go to benefit our fiscal sponsor, Wild Goose Creative, but also it's going to be putting film artists to work in Columbus. Like that donation is going straight to employing film artists in Columbus.
Huge.
And it could be the difference of them making their year in income, whether it's on whatever side of the camera.
Right.
So for that 5 weeks of production that we're doing, we're going to be employing easily 200 film artists between actors and crew. And that doesn't even get into touch on the vendors that we're going to be using for food and everything else. So
driving the economy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the economical impact that a film can have on a place. Yeah. So that's it. So downtothefeltmovie.com, Down to the Felt Movie social media handle. And then people can find me on Instagram. Let me see if I can remember it. I think it's the Jon Osbeck. No H.
I think so too.
No H.
Jon Osbeck.
Yeah, I've lived my life thinking that my middle name was no H because I would say I'm Jon No H Osbeck. So.
I love that, John. Well, thank you so much for being here, and this conversation was amazing, man. You're welcome
dude,
anytime.
Marq, I'd be honored to come back anytime. So I'm just, again, so happy that we met at the pitch contest and that you said something, and I'm very thankful for what you said about the film and about the pitch. And I'm glad to sit down with you and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. You guys are going to win, man. Let's schedule one for probably in the spring when you guys start shooting again.
Ooh, okay. I'll be deep in it, but that'd be fun to do, like something just as we're getting ready to shoot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
Yeah, like right before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool.
I mean, for sure, you're going to be on the set somehow. I mean, we'll figure out something.
I'm going to cry later. All right. See you guys.
All right.